I want to thank each and every one of you for coming and really trying to learn and get information, because especially with learning problems, especially with ADHD, it's all about education and information. If you approach the issue in the right way, with the right understanding, I find that you can get tremendous results, and quickly. Okay, so who am I? I am a dyslexic person myself, and I'm ADHD, so I'm doubly gifted, right? So a lot of this information comes from my own experience. It also comes from being very motivated to look at the research and what's out there in terms of helping people. I'm a coach, an ADHD coach from Los Angeles. So I'm up in Los Angeles, and I work with adults, I work with children, I work with couples. I basically work with anyone who wants to work with me. Okay. And I have a very strengths-oriented approach. I do empowerment. Another therapist asked me, so what do you do? How do you describe your approach? Are you cognitive behavioral? Are you this? I said, I'm empowerment. I empower people. And it's very appropriate with learning disabilities, dyslexia in particular, and ADHD, because there's tremendous strengths. And so if you can focus on the strengths and kind of identify them and mobilize them and get them going, you can often use those to compensate for the weaknesses or address the weaknesses. And sometimes once you get the strengths going, the weaknesses kind of take care of themselves. It don't seem like it's such a big issue. Especially with adults where they can find a setting which is a really good match for them. So I help them find good matches in terms of work. I help them find good matches in terms of relationships. I help them find good matches because there's good matches out there. But what do I match? And that's what I started thinking was, how do I work? How do I do what I do? And so today's presentation is really going to be about looking at that. And when I went and saw Daniel Siegel present, he's a neurologist from UCLA, I heard him talking about the brain and the different functions of the different areas of the brain. He wasn't talking about it in terms of learning disabilities. He wasn't talking about it in terms of ADHD. He was just talking about the different functions. And then I had one of those aha moments that we know people with dyslexia have. And I said, wait, that's what I've been talking about. That's what I've been doing. That's what I've been seeing. That's what I've been trying to tell them. So what I did was I wrote down the different areas of the brain, left and right, and kind of what they do and things like that. And by golly, it aligned a lot with what I was doing. So I thought this was a nice way to organize and talk about my approach. So we're going to use some of his information about the brain and how it works, which I think is very appropriate, because what we're talking about here is brain differences. Point blank, brain differences. Not personality, not willfulness, brain differences. So talking about and using a model about the brain makes a lot of sense. Okay. Is this the most complete information about the brain, left and right brain? No, but it's a start. And I was able to encompass a lot of the strategies I use that I find are very useful. I'm a practitioner. I'm not a researcher. And so I'm talking about what works and what works out there. But I would take it so far as to say that they're just more experiential. They learn in an experiential way. The other thing is there's two ways to learn. You can learn from others, and you can learn from experience. Now in school, we're trying to teach them to learn from others and books and things like that. But these guys tend to learn from experience. Now this can be a real difficult thing for a parent, right? Because the parent's like, please don't do this. I did this when I was a kid. You don't want to do this. This is going to be a nightmare. It's going to be very painful. I don't love you. I don't want this to happen. Don't do it. Please don't do it. Right? Right? And then what does the child do? Go ahead and does it. Because they need that experience. Okay? So you're not going to change that. I think a good parent designs and gives child experiences and then helps them reflect on those experiences and learn from them more quickly. Because that's the way they learn. But they can learn very quickly. Now, one of the things I do is I'm always encouraging parents, sign them up for extracurriculars, do the camp thing. Because, by the way, camps, while schools are made and designed for left-brainers and run by left-brainers, camps are often a very good match for the right brain. And so they can feel a good match. And they can exercise their strengths. And it can be very important for keeping their self-esteem up. Okay? So we definitely want to do that. Okay. So experiential. Okay. So I'd be giving your child lots of experiences. Okay? And if they insist on having an experience of their own, which they're going to, try to restrain yourself and try to be more of a consultant or coach type of role and say, okay, that was a really hard way to learn. And I know we talked about it before you did it. So let's see what we can learn from it. Did that work for you? No, Mommy, that was horrible. Oh my gosh. Well, maybe that'll help you remember, right, for next time. And what did you learn from it? Don't ever touch the hot grill before unplugging it. I say, and why not? Because it'll blister me, Mom, like right now. Oh, well, we'll just put some stuff on and try to go. Okay. So they learn from experiences. But the good mom gives experiences, and gives experiences that's going to encourage things they really want to see, and also gives them exposure to role models that they really want to be exposed to. Okay? There's an art to this. But if you see a parent who is learning different themselves with a child who's learning different, and they're having good luck with that child, it's because they innately know this. But I'm explicitly telling you because it can make even the left-brain parent much, much more effective. Raw, spontaneous emotion, right? These guys really feel, right? But that can be good because they really care, right? And this is why we need to work really hard to help them find success, because they feel and perceive the pain of failure even more than most kids, which is really the ironic thing and the painful thing. One of their strengths of this being able to feel more is a nightmare because they know they're not doing well. They see the other kids doing well and they want to do well. And that's why we should work our brains out to bring in, to get the information like this workshop, to get a better understanding of how to help them, and to bring in the outside kind of resources they need to do well. And oftentimes it's not in the schools. But the good news is you can control the camps and the extracurriculars. You can be more positive. You can find strategies that work and then bring them to the teacher at the school and say, you know what, this works really well at home, why don't you try it also? Okay, so we got to be real mindful of how sensitive they are. And sensitivity is a good thing because sensitivity is a form of perception. They perceive more than other people, right? And that can help them in their problem-solving ability and things like that. And so we want them to be more sensitive, but also they have to learn how to turn it down when things are really intense. And by the way, is school generally a good environment for sensitive kids? No, it's pretty rough stuff. So we got to teach them how to turn it up and turn it down. And I tell them, you know, when you go out and play sports, turn that sensitivity up, sense the guy next to you, right? But when you go into class, you might want to start turning it down when your teacher's yelling and everything going on. And teach them how to turn it up and turn it down, not try to get rid of it, but just how to manage it. And that's what this is all about. Understanding yourself, understanding your difference, learning how to maximize your strengths, compensate for your weaknesses, and manage your strengths. Autobiographical memory. This is the part of the brain that really has a sense of who they are, right? And this is what I find with these guys, is that they have a tremendous sense of who they are as a person, in a family, and in society. And that's why it's very important for us to tell the truth to these guys. And that is, you have tremendous strengths. You have a very specialized type of brain, right? Similar to a Ferrari that performs very well under certain conditions, and we want to help you find those conditions. And then we want to help you adapt your Ferrari for circumstances where you need more like a pickup truck, okay? Which would be school. And we want to kind of do it. We want to tell them the truth, because without that, right, they start to really lose that positive sense of themselves, and you're working against a really bad attitude and low self-esteem, they call it. I think particularly important is, well, in general, you want a holistic approach that's going to take into account the whole person in general. But specifically, I'm not such a great drawer. Okay. School is arranged very linear and logically, right? So we go from one thing to another. What happens is one thing leads to another, that leads to another, that leads to another. And it's organized very linearly. Now in school, you may never get to the conclusion. You may just keep building the steps and building the steps, building the steps. You may never get to the conclusion. Or you may, but it'll be at the end of the year. The problem is with a holistic learner, they need the whole big picture before they can understand the parts. They need to read the end of the book before they read the pieces of the book to make sense. And a lot of these kids in some areas, in the right brain areas, they're very sophisticated. It has nothing to do with age. Okay, they're very strong. Okay, but the kid who argues, right, might be able to produce a lot of ideas, right? Might be very creative in what he's coming up with, right? They might be very spontaneous. Want to be very perceptive because he's picking up a lot of things. This is all just from arguing, right? So when we look at defenses, oftentimes we can see strengths. And then we want to take those strengths and redirect them. This is my approach. Find strengths and redirect them. Kind of like that karate stuff, right? Rather than try to stop the energy and feel the pain, just kind of redirect it another way. That's my approach. Because you're not going to eliminate the strengths. These guys are tremendous. But you want to redirect it in a way that works better for them and everyone else. Attention reactivity. Attention reactivity. This is an interesting one. A lot of people say kids with ADHD have problems paying attention. And I would say, I think the bigger issue is they pay attention to everything. So when they're looking at the teacher, they're not just looking at the teacher, they're watching the teacher breathe, they're watching if they have earrings dangling, they're listening to the shoes moving, they're listening to the guy next to them, and they're thinking about what they're going to do after school, all at the same time. So the bigger issue is trying to eliminate some of these distractions and helping them focus. Stress reactivity, okay? Stress reactivity. These kids, these adults, are high-tuned, okay? If you go to the park and you see all the different types of dogs out there, there are some dogs that are big sheep dogs, barely bark, and they're, right? And then you got the yippy dogs, right? Yip, 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 yip. These guys are more yippy dogs, okay? Yip, 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 yip. They are highly, highly tuned. So not just highly stressed, but highly tuned. And I use the analogy of a Ferrari, right? These are highly tuned, specialized performance brains. That's what we're dealing with. So we need to deal with them in a very specialized, highly tuned way with a specialized understanding. If we do that, and if they can come to understand themselves, they can do very, very well. Hopefully from this, you will leave with a new perspective and some tools about how to identify strengths associated with learning disabilities and ADHD, how to highlight these strengths, how to mobilize these strengths to help deal with weaknesses, as well as just mobilize these strengths in general. It's my commitment to help people find their gifts, help them find their strengths and develop them, while still addressing weaknesses. But when you do it through strengths, everything's easier. I want to help, so contact me and let me know what I can do. I provide phone coaching as well as in-person coaching. I work with children. I work with young adults. I work with couples. I even work with adults that are working to help them find better fits and be more productive at work and be more happy at work. So please don't hesitate to contact me if I can be of help.